So I will try to shortly introduce you, but like feel free to add to it. So Primavera was building the network state week in Suzalu. I think that was only like a hobby job, but actually focusing on research into DAOs and Centrum Nacional de la Research Scientific. I hope I pronounce it right. And also the Harvard University. So thank you for coming. And Vít Jedlička, president of Liberland. That was easier. Let's start with the first question. Primavera, you are focusing like on the, let's say, I would call it network state, but like you have the concept of coordination. So can you maybe in a couple words explain like what that means?
Yeah, so essentially the whole event we organized at Suzalu was to actually make it clear that when we talk about network state, there are many flavors and many recipes of network states. So one of those recipes, which we have called coordinations, is actually about like trying to focus more on the notion of nationhood as opposed to statehood, and showing how blockchain technology also enables those new types of network sovereignties that enable people to coordinate themselves, but as opposed to like the majority of DAOs which enable global coordination but for a very small and specific activity. We can also conceive of much more like, I guess, generalistic DAO that actually are more of a meta-government structure in order to enable people to engage into collective action and in order to manage a common shared pool of digital or potentially non-digital assets. So the coordination is kind of like in the same way as like Balaji has come up with these 7-step recipes to a network state. It's great to have one recipe, but it's nicer to have multiple recipes if we have different tastes. And so the coordination, I would say, like if Balaji is really focusing on this exit-based approach to network states and more of how do we actually take the private sector to engage into this domain that usually is the domain of the public sector. What we try to do with coordination is actually looking at how do we get civil society to engage and to re-empower itself in order to create government structures that are transnational. And if you find a community that wants to engage in collective action, then what are the new technological opportunities that blockchain provides in order to enable that?
Thank you. And if I understand correctly, you are the founder community actually, and you are actually creating the new state with the community in between Croatia and Serbia, where you found like basically the area nobody claimed, so it's free to use. So like that's the first question for my first part of the question, like why you wanted to actually create like a new state and why you choose like a blockchain governance for it.
Get back to your initial questions about the DAOs and say the question I think is really how many nation states are not going to be DAOs in 30 years from now. I think that's a pretty interesting concept, and let's see how the DAO idea will spread among the existing states. So, and at some point also we realized that the DAO is the future. At the very beginning, from 2015, we were looking into how to actually build it. It took us a while to do it, but we're at this stage when the whole DAO governance has been created. We are created according to our constitution, which I believe is the best constitution in the world, of course. But we've been working on it 8 years, trying to really combine the best elements of republic, the best elements of corporate governance, the best elements of democracy to build it into a nice system of governance into the nation state that could be the most competitive one, that could also be copy-pasted. So of course we are on GitHub, so you can see how our DAO works, and we are at this stage where we are onboarding our citizens onto the platform, and we're planning to launch it later this year. Actually, for Floating Man Festival, we will have basically the initial launch of the Liberland Congress and the whole governance will kick in, which I would like to invite you, of course. That's happening now in August 5th. That's a good opportunity to visit Liberland as well as meet people in our community.
Nice. Happy to come, and hopefully other people are invited as well, if they know how to come. And also, you both mentioned actually like the important part of this is like sovereignty. And Vít, you are like taking the more traditional approach, I would say, that like to being sovereign, you need actually your own land and be there. Like, can you maybe elaborate a little bit more on that like importance of having like that land?
Of course, it's good to have a place where nobody can go after you, and you're free to really exercise what you want as a state. If you don't have that, it's always difficult because there are these international treaties, and if you do something in one country, they go after you no matter where you are. So it's kind of cool to have a sovereign piece of land, but of course, you can be also very powerful corporation like Google, and then you are kind of accepted from other things. You can also build a network state that has very good diplomatic relations with other states and try to utilize that. But the international is quite strict about the sovereignty being tied to a sovereign piece of land. Even the Maltesian order has basically sovereign square in the middle of Rome, where they are free to do whatever they want. Of course, it's not very much exercised, and they are kind of on the edge between the sovereignty and basically the international organization, yet they are considered a sovereign order of Malta. So Liberland has that territory. It's 3 times bigger than for example, Vatican, or 4 times bigger, or 10 times bigger than Vatican, 3 times bigger than Monaco, similar size like Gibraltar. And we're trying to develop our sovereignty fully there. It's a challenge, but we're undergoing a challenge right now. It's a lot of fun settling Liberland while basically exercising our sovereignty over the territory. You don't need any building permit in Liberland. It's kind of cool. You come there, you build whatever you want. So as long as you are able to get there and get over some obstacles that the Croatia is putting in our way.
Yeah, let me just to add on the concept of sovereignty. I would say that, so we have like the Montevideo Convention that defines here are the prerequisites for a state, right? And one of them, so you need like a territory, you need a population, you need a government, and you need diplomatic recognition. And so we did like the research and the work that we're doing with the coordination. We're also trying to think whether this question of the territory, is it not something that is actually becoming obsolete? And the question becomes, when we're talking about state, like when we really talk about statehood, now that if state is actually an infrastructure, is an institutional framework in order to enable a population to be governed through a government, then can we actually not today, because of the new opportunities that telecommunication and potential blockchain technology provides, do we actually really need a territory? And of course, the territory provides sovereignty at the geographical level, and I think that's where like all those discussions become re-interacting in the age of blockchain, is that now we can actually create infrastructure that is, even though the people of course still are in a territory, the infrastructure of governance of this population is itself sovereign in the sense that it is not subject to a sovereign entity, and therefore I think it becomes interesting to also imagine a world in which you can have overlapping layers of sovereignties, and while there might be like the territorial states which provide an institutional infrastructure which comes along with that territorial delimitation, you can also have other types of states which have a different type of institutional framework that also enable coordination of a population through a government that can also can acquire diplomatic recognition, even though it is not necessarily linked to one territory. And in this sense, it's even different from Balaji, because Balaji is still, its concept of network state is still bound to having these archipelagos of territories all around the world. But to me, it doesn't seem at all crazy that we are talking about new types of network sovereignties that are actually independent of having and declaring autonomy on a territorial level. I can be on the French territory and also being the citizen of a network state which lives on this digital realm and doesn't necessarily need to have a flag somewhere on a territory.
Yeah, this is interesting. So do you think like those two concepts, like basically like the territorial one and the like non-territorial one, it's like one out of them will win eventually, or it's more like complementary like layers that we will have some states that will be still like we will probably have still territory, and then like on top of it we will have like second citizenship or something, or how it would play for me as a citizen. Like can you maybe talk like from user perspective, like how I can I be part of just the network state, or do I need to be part of both?
Yeah, well, I think, like having a territory doesn't hurt. It's kind of a cherry on the top of the whole governance structure, right? And it will be difficult for network states to get recognized by traditional countries if they don't have that territory. If they can actually achieve that in a similar way like Maltesian order has achieved that, basically that they get some sort of patronage probably from existing state. But of course, the main thing is, are these network states able to basically provide better service than traditional states? And that's something that I think will be very interesting to observe. What kind of services these network states will be providing it to its citizens so they become competitive, and people will, in masses, will turn to them. But I think it's good to have a territory. We are not leaving Liberland anytime soon, and we are actually expanding our territory by building floating platforms in international waters. We started that project half a year ago. And I'm quite excited that we will have also some experimental medical clinic there very soon. There is a big barge that is parked close to Dubai. It's in international waters under Liberland flag, where we are able to exercise our sovereignty, yet not in the territory of Liberland, but on the boat that is under Liberland flag in international waters. That's another way, basically, how we can expand the territory and place where nobody will come and arrest you or whatever you will do if you just try a new form of experimental science, for example. So I'm looking forward to have lots of companies there as well that are going to experiment, as well as try different areas of research. For example, there is not possible to have a casino now in Dubai yet for another 2.5 years. So we will be running a casino 25 nautical miles close to Dubai for a year before they even start to register casinos. So I'm quite excited that there is possibility to extend the territory of Liberland without annexing another country and with using just the existing paradigm where you have this seasteading institute where we just been pushing for it for many years, but nobody has really done it, so we are doing it now.
Yeah, and I will add to that, of course there is a huge advantage of having a territory, which is you can carve out your own space of freedom in which you're not subject to the laws of any other country, although still being bound to like international law. At the same time, unless you really want to do something that a country doesn't let you do, then this is the reason why you would want to get your own territory. I think there is a lot of value in creating additional institutional governance structures that actually are perfectly compliant with anything that existing territorial states are providing as like the boundary condition in which you can operate. And yet you can provide additional services. I feel like a very good example is Estonia. Right? Estonia, of course, has its own territory, but it's also extending its reach by actually acquiring electronic citizens, whatever that means. It actually just means, well, we are providing a service to individual, to a population that is not on our territory. They are like residents, whatever that means to be resident, it means that they are on our database. But if the services that are provided by this state are actually valuable, and if other people from different countries see the value in that, it doesn't matter. I don't want to go to Estonia in order to benefit from the governance infrastructure that Estonia has provided to me. So I think it's not really like first order and second order. I think it's more about, can we actually distinguish between the services that the state provides because of the landlordness of the state, and this is like public safety, public infrastructure, and all these things that is inherently territorial bound. And this, you need a governor of the territory that's providing the services, but then there's a lot of other services, especially like governmental services like identification, like registration, like opening companies and things like this, that are not you don't need a territory to do that. You can do it anywhere as long as you have a database. Ideally, the database is not in anyone else's territory, so that no one can shut it down. But so if you manage to have a sovereign infrastructure that is capable of providing services to citizens independently of their geographical location, then you can have a new institutional governance structure, which, as long as the citizens of this governance structure are not trying to escape from existing regulatory frameworks of the country in which they reside, then you don't need to declare independence and have your own territory, unless you really have a reason to say, okay, actually I want to be the landlord because I don't agree with the view of this landlord, and there is nowhere in the world that I can do whatever I want to do. In this case, yes, that's actually creating the state. But I don't think it's a matter of like secondary or primary. I think it's actually, there is a lot of value in distinguishing those different types of services, which are governmental services in terms of governance, and territorial services. And today we just have this, because of nation states being constantly bound to a territory, to conflate those different modalities, but actually they can be subdivided very easily.
No, I really like that kind of service provider almost aspect to it. Like if I want to build a fintech, I might choose Estonia to actually start a company there, and for something else I will choose different state. So we are a little bit running out of time, but I have one last question because we'll be over here. So from a practical perspective, if someone from the audience want to start a state, what will be the 3 things you would kind of recommend them to start with?
You just kind of want to react a little bit. You brought me to this idea that places like Liberland or other traditional states could also recognize these network states and then basically provide them a shelter for operating internationally in a recognized way. So this is something which I think will be the next step, that you will have basically these kind of service governance providers that might be actually recognized by other countries through which they will gain legitimacy. And what are the steps to start a country? I'm trying 8 years hard to really build a big community. We've got 700,000 people somehow on board. I'm trying hard to open representative offices around the world. I think we are in more than 100 countries now. But it takes time, and really it takes a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of energy to get things off the ground. And I'm quite happy that we finally got the DAO also working. So I think it will bring us additional momentum from which now the states or network states can start, right? Like we're starting with the database and transforming ourselves into DAO, while the other pop states can basically start as a DAO directly and have a very clean, creative governance from the beginning. Anyway.
Yeah, I will try to answer without fully answering, because I want to answer sideways. I think I have no idea. If you want to start your own state, good luck. But luckily there is a lot of states already. If you want to create your own network state, I think that's easier. And in fact, there is a lot of code, because the digital world is full of code for that. So my suggestion would be first create your network state before everything else. Figure out who's your population and what is your governance structure and what is the type of collective action and the common management of processes that you want to do. And then go and find a friendly state that already exists, that is dealing with all the mess of the physical world that you probably don't want to deal with. And find a friendly state and actually create partnership with the friendly states. And you don't even need to stick to one of them. You can stick to as many as you want. And actually, if you as a network state have something to provide that is sufficiently valuable as to justify a partnership with an existing state, probably you are worthy of existence. If you're not going to find any partnership, probably you have nothing to offer, and probably need to rethink your model. And maybe later, in many years, then you might be like, okay, maybe now we want to stay, but start small and start by finding like why are you ever wanting to create this new sovereignty. And I think there is so many states today that are actually dealing with very difficult problems, which is, you know, public safety, public infrastructure, really challenging problems. If what you want is to have a coordinated community that is doing something, you should focus on that. Don't waste your time creating the whole bureaucratic infrastructure of the state, because there's already a lot of states that can help you on that. And yes, I think that's a very good business model for Liberland, is to become like the physical incorporation for all those network states that are going to emerge, and then just partner with Liberland or with anyone else. And you don't need your physical territory as long as you have physical spaces that are happy to welcome you and enabling you to do what you want to achieve.
I'm happy that we figured it out on the stage, like how we will do it, like for the future. Now, thank you very much for both of you coming. This was a very exciting panel, and looking forward to starting new states and states connected to DAOs. And if you have any question, it will be networking now, so you can ask Primavera or Vít. Actually, John will tell you more about it. And thank you.